Elden Ring has a beautiful variety of locations and disgusting cretins that inhabit them, but out of its many locations, which ones are the best and which ones are the worst? Since the days of the Australopithecus, the human race has used lists of tiers to determine such things. In this video, I will rank every Elden Ring location. Let's get started. To me, the eternal cities of Nokron and Nokstella are basically the same location. Yeah, I know what you were gonna say. They are literally separate locations. This is true, but who can tell the difference between them? Admit it. You had to Google which was which at some point. Random people on Twitter will say that Elden Ring is confusing, that it needs quest markers or whatever. It doesn't need any of that. Elden Ring just needs some text on the main menu saying, Nokron is the Mimic tier 1. Nokstella is the really long river where you can't summon your mount. However, this got me thinking. There is no way that there isn't something more to the naming of these cities. It could be said that they have similar names because they were created by the same culture, which is fair enough, but there is a dark secret. You know how McDonald's would have like a boy's toy or a girl's toy with your Happy Meal? Like the girls would get My Little Pony and the boys would get a spark plug. The eternal cities are basically this. Nokron is the boy's toy. Nokstella is the girl's toy. It makes sense. These cities were meant as breadcrumbs for the future Elden Ring DLC. A Happy Meal also comes with more than just toys. It comes with a meal. This means that there must exist another city to represent the Happy Meal. No other city in Elden Ring is happy, so naturally it follows that the DLC will feature a happy eternal city. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of Travis Scott BTS meal type marketing promotion with Elden Ring in the future. The Miyazaki meal, a box full of rats and your drink is toxic swamp water. Also, the underpaid cashier punches you in the face. In the spirit of true equality, Nokron and Nokstella are both being ranked as C tier. The first time you find this elevator is magical. You ride it down deep into the lands between, and you discover Siofra River. Of course, it looks like an absolutely awful place to live, but you work your way through the zone and discover that it's even bigger than you first expected. You also can see the city above you, and the palace in the distance. It's an amazing moment. You realize that the game is bigger than you thought, but then you meet the arrow guys. These guys are the worst, especially when you are using a low-level character. I assume they were only put here solely to stop new characters from exploring too far, which is understandable, but at the same time, it's kind of annoying. Ultimately, I have to rank Siofra River as S tier. Even though the arrow guys exist, the zone is just too good to be brought down by them. Mohgwyn Palace is an edgy man-child's version of a palace. It has blood everywhere. The enemies here are just variants of other enemies but red, because blood is red. And according to the edgy man-child that is Mohg, blood is cool. At a certain point, it just gets unsanitary. Like there are giant diseased birds writhing around in all of this blood. I feel like the only reason this place is covered in blood is because Mohg cannot be bothered cleaning his place. He's just lazy. Just get a mop and bucket. There is a reason why fast food joints never have this much inside of them. The diligent, underpaid workforce make sure it is clean. However, just like Mohgwyn Palace, they still have diseased birds. Like for example, this KFC near where I live just keeps its automatic doors open because the queue usually just runs up to the sensor. So pigeons just fly in. One time I was sitting down and eating with a friend. Just at the table across from us was a pack of pigeons just savaging a box of KFC. They were on top of the table and ripping the box to shreds, just to get at the inside. The whole time people were walking in and ordering meals. The staff weren't doing anything about it. I can't blame them though. Have you seen what a pigeon can do to a man? So in terms of Elden Ring locations, the KFC near where I live would have to rank around B tier. It's in a convenient spot, but it will probably be responsible for an outbreak of avian flu that ends the entire human race. Liurnia is probably the most diverse location in the entire game. Sure, most of it is just a massive ankle-deep lake, but it has a lot of interesting sub-locations, like the Albinoric village, the Turtle Zone, or Jarburg. Probably the coolest part of the zone is the Moonlight Altar. It's not really a cohesive part of it because it requires a lot of work to get there, but you constantly see this mysterious structure looming over the landscape, and the payoff when you finally arrive there is really cool. Liurnia also has the 4 belfries. This is kind of a weird location because a lot of the portals don't really give you a reward. However, you do get a cool view. It's a location that is very pointless, but seeing some of these locations from a different angle, potentially before you ever reach some of them, is a really interesting experience for a first playthrough. Liurnia is definitely an S tier location. Miquella's Haligtree is probably one of the most difficult locations in the entire game. It has the hardest boss in the game, Loretta, Knight of the Haligtree, and a lot of people complain about the health and damage of the common enemies. However, it is also one of the most interesting locations in the game. First of all, it is literally a tree, and trees are cool. The area has such a fun structure to it, with how you descend from the branches near the top all the way to the roots down at the bottom. The Haligtree also has the most interesting story out of any of the other areas in the game. The entire place only exists because of Liurnia and Miquella, and every aspect of it exists to tell their story. Most other areas only serve to further their own narrative rather than that of the characters, which is perfectly fine, but it makes the Haligtree very unique in that regard. It's definitely an S tier zone. City Slicker elites don't get it. Caelid is for real rough and tumble salt of the earth types. That's good soil. Caelid represents the endgame of pigeons. It is a desolate, poisonous wasteland in which they rule. The pigeons chase their quarry. They hunt them down. You cannot escape from these pigeons, just like any street corner in a population center. Caelid represents a perfect merger between the urban and rural lifestyles. It is this mixed zoning implemented by the Caelid state government that has created such a rich culture of pigeons and dogs. The zone takes a lot of the pain out of Dark Souls poison swamp zones. When you ride on your dog, you can't even build up any poison, but the mechanic can still threaten you if you dismount to fight in the swamp, but you don't have to deal with the damage or the slow move speed when walking. Compared to the other zones, Caelid is kind of weird when it comes to the progression. You can enter it for the first time from many different directions. The fart gas chest teleport, the normal road into it, or the path from Dragonbarrow, just to name a few. Redmane Castle is the big dungeon of the area, but you pretty much skip the entire dungeon when it comes time for you to fight Radahn. And if you do complete it normally, you don't actually fight Radahn. The festival only starts when you get to a certain point in the game. So what does all of this mean? Compared to other zones, there isn't really a goal in Caelid. You can't progress to the main boss and beat him when you first enter the area. This makes Caelid a zone that you come back to repeatedly throughout your playthrough. I kept coming back to check on things like the giant jar guy, or Millicent, or Celia, or the Divine Tower, and so on. There is just so much to explore here. For that reason, I would rate Caelid as S tier, even if it is a poison swamp. Deeproot Depths is a really interesting location. It is quite hidden and it can lead to a cool boss fight. You also get to look at Godwyn in his weird Squidward-esque magnificence. Everything in this location pales in comparison to one enemy. The greatest enemy in Deeproot Depths is this tower. Seriously, I hate this thing so much. I climbed up it expecting an item and I just got some Arteria leaf. Okay, fair enough, not a big deal. Then I tried to jump back down. Okay, that was kind of annoying. Maybe I just had bad aim, like in the bathroom. So I try again. It doesn't work. Okay, now I am absolutely incensed. This tower will not beat me. I will win. It will bend to my will. Then, I got this run. Deeproot Depths is D tier. Volcano Manor is basically Australia. I mean, it's about the same temperature and it has snakes. Of course, these snakes are a bit taller. It also has rabid dogs and naked men who throw their waste at you. There is no place like home. There are also these Iron Maiden machines that straight up have living snakes inside of them, which only foreshadows the torturous nature of this dungeon. Volcano Manor has a bunch of tortured dungeons that were used to persecute the Albinaurics. There is an Omen killer in here, which most likely oversaw all of this. Further into the area, you can find some Albinaurics who are still alive and hostile. They are just writhing around in these torture harnesses. If you attack them for no reason, they bleed white, which is honestly just plain feral. There is this amazing cutscene where you push a lever and it pulls a bridge out of the lava. This has to be probably my favorite cutscene in the entire game. It is just so emotional, especially towards the end where you watch the bridge cool down. Beautiful. Volcano Manor has the first Godskin noble you will encounter in the entire game. At least that's how I assume it is intended. For me personally, I had already beaten every variation of the Godskin boss fights before I even entered this area, so this was a welcome way to take out the frustration felt by the Godskin duo. The interesting thing about the Volcano Manor zone is that you can basically just skip the entire thing if you do the NPC questlines attached to it. Upon completing them, you get teleported straight to Rykard's boss room. The entrance to the entire dungeon is also hidden, so I assume some players could easily end up skipping this entire area through the questline without even realizing. It makes me wonder if maybe they could have put the Serpent Hunter weapon somewhere at the end of the dungeon in order to incentivize players to actually complete it. With all of this said, I would have to rate Volcano Manor as B tier. Mountaintops of the Giants has snow and dead guys. The map catalogs all the dead guys for you. How nice is that? My favorite part of this zone is walking the wrong way around the edge of the forge, and then thinking that you can make the jump, but you can't make the jump, so you die. The location does suffer from not having any kind of legacy dungeon. It does have Castle Sol, but that's not really that interesting. No offense, Castle Sol. So you kind of just ride around on dogback through the snow, until you get to the end of the zone or find a dungeon you feel like doing. It does have some cool encounters related to Volcano Manor, an interesting dragon fight, and a cool tower puzzle, but ultimately, Mountaintops of the Giants is painfully average. At some point you might find yourself descending this elevator and being greeted with this sight. The Lake of Rot is a location. You can visit this location. It is literally just a lake of rot. You will spend minutes just slowly wading through the scarlet sludge. All of this just to pick up some meaningless item you saw in the distance that you really do not care about. You can alleviate scarlet rot buildup through utilizing consumables, but no one in the lands between has actually developed a vaccine for scarlet rot yet. Or have they? Yes, you can actually get vaccinated against scarlet rot through the Flame Cleanse Me or the Law of Regression incantations. However, you will need a booster shot. Unfortunately, there isn't a single member of the Golden Order checking for proof of vaccination at the entrance to the Lake of Rot, so it really makes me question the effectiveness of their Scarlet Rot protocols. There is also an entire boss fight right in the middle of the lake, because why not? That is the Miyazaki seal of quality. At the end of the zone is the Grand Cloister, which is basically this massive monastery. It is infested with Kumas, who appear to have some hand in venerating the outer god of Scarlet Rot and simping. This entire sub-area is very reminiscent of Umberto Eco's 1980 historical mystery novel, The Name of the Rose. No, I will not elaborate on that further. At the end of this Kuma joint is one of the more bizarre coffin roller coasters in the game. Basically, you ride it off this massive Scarlet Rot waterfall, which is incredibly stupid, but it then somehow carries you to this beautiful tranquil moonlight cave with no rot in sight. Now look, I have ridden in many coffins in my time, however, none of them have ever been this magical. For those reasons, I rate the Lake of Rot as S tier. I know what you're thinking, how could you rate the Lake of Rot S tier? It's absolutely Yeah, well, it's so it becomes good. The Subterranean Shunning Grounds is a testament to the failings of Morgoth's government. To start off, it is literally a jail in a sewer, which is already a human rights abuse. And then the way you enter this sewer is through a well. Usually you go to a well to get drinking water, and not whatever is down in this hellhole of a sewer. It is home to one of the most evil characters in the entire game, the Dung Eater. The only reason you ever come down here is to continue the Dung Eater's questline, or to continue the Frenzied Flame questline. Both of these things are very diabolical. On top of that, it also has a massive creepy maze of pipes and platforms. They will have holes that loop back onto earlier parts, and if you fall down one of them, you have to go back through the dungeon again. It can get very frustrating, especially with all of the disgusting enemies, like these large fathers that spew at you. Its one redeeming quality is the fight with Mohg and the cool secret that is the Three Fingers. The location of this fight provides some interesting background to Mohg and Morgoth's relationship, like how Morgoth probably imprisoned Mohg down here, but also that this is like a fake Mohg, so maybe he didn't. It's hard to say. The area after it also has some cool implications for the relationship between the merchants and the Three Fingers, but an absolutely awful jumping section. Man, I love jumping puzzles. So what tier would I rate the most awful location in the game? That's easy, S tier. Why would I rate this hell pit so highly? That YouTube money. This joint got me over 1 million views. I'd ride with a Dung Eater anytime, but I am still not going to to attend a single one of his dinner parties. Dragonbarrow is basically Caelid. I did not even know that it was not Caelid until later in the game. Did you even know it wasn't Caelid? So I'm rating it the same as Caelid. Altus Plateau is a little bit scuffed compared to the other big open zones that are Liurnia, Limgrave and Caelid. It's not bad or anything, it just feels way smaller, but it's a weird kind of smaller. In the back of your mind, it always feels like you still have to explore it, and that you haven't seen everything yet. Even if you actually have seen it all, it's just this big gaping hole in your memories and in your heart. Kind of like divorce. I've never been divorced. Maybe I will someday, but if I had to wager how it felt, I would say Altus Plateau. Have you been through a divorce? Was it Altus Plateau? If not, what Elden Ring location did your divorce feel like? Feel free to leave a comment. The location itself has a very nice look to it. One of the coolest spots is the Windmill Village. It's probably the place in the map with the most human looking enemies. Most of the enemies in the game are basically zombies. Physically, they look like zombies, and mentally, they play Genshin Impact. But in the Windmill Village, these bizarre dancers actually look kind of human. Of course, they are still very unsettling. The backstory of this village is that they basically skin people during a festival. A ghost near the village tells us this. It makes for a very interesting atmosphere. It's a shame they didn't do more with this village and its theme, but if we end up seeing more Godskin stuff in the DLC, we might also get some more locations like this village. I always misread Altus Plateau as Atlas Plateau, like the developer that made those weird high school games. I only ever realized that it was called Altus when someone uploaded a 2-hour-long deconstruction of my pronunciation. I would have to rate Altus Plateau as A tier. It is really cool, and I would rate it S tier normally, but if I get divorced in the future, this location might remind me about it, and that could make me sad. Carian Study Hall is one of the most interesting locations in Elden Ring. When you first go there, you kind of just go through the whole thing and clear it in one go. Fight the annoying mage NPC, fight her slaves, then you get to the top, climb on the beams, look at some rats, and you think, is this really it? Just by itself, it's a very weird zone, because you expect the reward to be the Divine Tower, and it is, but it's delayed. Way later on in the game, you get the Days of Our Lives looking ass thing from Rani, and can use it to flip this entire zone upside down. This is such a cool payoff. Rani could have just given you a key that unlocks the door to the tower. Instead, they went to the effort of flipping the area on its head, and allowing you to approach it in a completely fresh way. Carian Study Hall isn't even that interesting of an area. It's completely out of the way, and it's quite short. But having this delayed payoff really elevates the area, and makes it very memorable. I would have to say that this is an A tier area. Crumbling Farum Azula is the way that the cookie crumbles. Whatever that means. There are heaps of drakes flying around the place, and these massive tornadoes. It is very nice to get a look at a civilization completely different to some of the other places in Elden Ring. Crumbling Farum Azula seems to be a city inhabited by beastmen that is lost in time. It's hard to tell if it takes place before, after, or during the events of the main game, as there are many pieces of evidence that point to any interpretation. This location can be quite difficult if you are not careful, because your health will just get absolutely obliterated. I'm seeing enough movement! However, even if this location can be difficult at times, it is home to probably the easiest, most straightforward boss fight in the entire game, the Godskin Duo.
Hello. Hi.
This fight is fair and engaging. I was constantly getting up in the face of the duo and fighting them. It was really fun. I definitely did not just stand back and spam ranged attacks while my Force Ghost fought them for me. I don't know if anyone else had this issue, but I personally found this location a bit maze-like and confusing. Some of the paths after the Godskin Duo fight kind of loop back on each other, and if you incurred brain damage from playing Valorant once, it can be difficult to remember where you have been. There are some cool rooms though, like this one with this guy.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
The lighting in this zone does look quite beautiful though, especially in some of the rooftop areas or the places down below. I would have to rate Crumbling Farum Azula as D tier, solely because of the aforementioned Valorant-induced brain damage making it difficult to navigate. Mount Gelmir is home to my favorite ladder in the entire game. To provide some context, there are two main entrances, one that is a wide, long road that ends in this bridge, and this backdoor one located near Copenhagen. On my first playthrough, I went down found the first entrance and I quickly came to the broken bridge. I had no idea how to progress beyond this broken bridge. No way forward laid within my penetrating gaze. I was stumped, so I left the area. Eventually, I found Copenhagen and worked my way through the back entrance. It was a long and difficult journey, but I eventually made it to Volcano Manor. So where does my favorite ladder fit into all of this? Well, it turns out that the very first path actually does continue onto Volcano Manor. You just have to find this random ladder along the road. It just goes up the cliff. You climb it.
What a thrill.
And now you are back on the path to Volcano Manor. That whole time there was a way forward and I had no idea. I didn't have to go to Copenhagen. That's basically the main thing I remember about Mount Gelmir. The zone was boring as fuck, so I am going to have to rank it as B. B for boring. Leyndell Royal Capital is large and in charge. It sits somewhere between legacy dungeons like Stormveil Castle and more fully fledged zones like Limgrave. This is most obvious when you first enter the zone and are greeted with this amazing view. You see a massive, sprawling city before you. I think it's safe to say that From Software were pleased with themselves. I can just imagine them sitting around a desk and having this view pitched to them. Then they walk out of the tunnel and into the light. Yes, this is game design. Probably the best and worst aspect of Leyndell is that when you are just about to complete the game, the entire area gets changed. It turns into Leyndell Ashen Capital. Bro got that Dark Souls 3 Drake heap at the end of time fit. This new area is a lot smaller, but there are still some fun things to find. However, it has a dark secret. Elden Ring has an achievement for collecting all of the legendary armaments. One of them can be found in Leyndell and is removed if you don't collect it before progressing the main quest. You can always just get it through the power of New Game Plus, but that takes time. And in a world where every second is one step towards the inevitable unending void of death that awaits us all, do I really want to waste my time getting achievements in a video game? Yes. Ordinarily, I would rate Leyndell Royal Capital as S tier because it's my favorite location, but like any well-adjusted man-child, I simply have to put achievements before gameplay, so Leyndell is D tier. The Forbidden Lands is easily the most iconic location in all of Elden Ring. All of the children beg their parents for the official Elden Ring Forbidden Lands Lego set. Countless Tumblr users have written fanfiction about the Forbidden Lands, where Captain America has a bang cutscene with the entire location. I don't get the hype. It's basically this short snow-covered path. There is like a nice cavalry fight along it. This fight is awkward. The dog just gets stuck on the tree. The area is fun to traverse in the darkness though. It's kind of spooky, but only kind of spooky. Nothing actually scary happens. Like there is no Ronald Reagan jump scare. I mean, there kind of is with its Black Blade kindred, but it's literally just Big Bird. Big Bird isn't scary, Squidward is. The Forbidden Lands is C tier because it is painfully average. I'm sorry, but it's what I genuinely believe. I know basically everyone will disagree with me on this one and say that it should be S tier or something. It's just not happening. It has no purchase. I'm not buying what it's selling, whatever that means. At first, Caria Manor seems like a nice place to live. It has advanced magical artillery guarding it, and it has a beautiful moonlit atmosphere. However, you will soon find that it has a big problem. Hands. Why are there so many hands in this place? Like, what do they even do? They just sit on walls or bury themselves so they can jump scare you. The hands are powered by pure lean and will frequently use it against you. Caria Manor does have some redeeming qualities though, like the Three Sisters area, which is home to Rani and that creep Celivus. It is quite a tranquil area, and the fight before it with Loretta's Force Ghost is quite fun. However, the design of this place is absolutely bizarre, because to get here, you have to climb over all sorts of rooftops. It makes sense when you think about it though. The architects designed it like this because they knew that hands hated climbing over rooftops. Hands don't mind climbing walls, but the second that surface becomes an incline, they just check the f*** out. For those reasons, I would rate Carian Manor as solely D tier. I just really hate those damn hands. Raya Lucaria Academy is basically Harry Potter, but if they had giant crystals growing out of their skulls. It looms over the landscape of Liurnia, which builds up this sense of anticipation. The enemies in here have some really cool designs. They can get very annoying though, especially when it comes to the boss run for the Red Wolf of Octagon. Nearly every time I run to the fight, I always get tagged by one of these NPCs. NPCs. It's not a big deal because it's their right to shoot me, but it kinda gets old, and it's not appropriate behavior for a place of learning. It would have been nice if it wasn't shrouded in fog. That way we could look out over Liurnia from inside of the academy. At the same time though, this fog does add a really nice atmosphere to the entire zone, especially paired with how quiet this area can be at times, and the stray chimes that occasionally play, and dare I say it, Silent Hill vibe, Call of Duty vibes.
Cuba.
Raya Lucaria also has this cool rooftop area that is kind of hidden. It's how you get to Azur's glintstone staff, and it loops back onto the start of the area as well. You might not necessarily realize that this area even exists. There is also this cool illusory wall near the Red Wolf boss fight that has another secret behind it. You can also get up to the balcony of the Red Wolf arena. I would have to rate Raya Lucaria Academy as S tier. It's got such a great atmosphere and plenty of fun secrets. Stormveil Castle is probably the most open dungeon in the entire game. At any point, there are usually multiple directions you can explore that can lead to a small secret or a big one. This is exemplified right at the start, where you can go through the main gate and die instantly, or you can go around the side path, meet some birds and die instantly. At first, in terms of appearance, Stormveil Castle is quite boring. It's just a castle, but it does have some really nice looking locations, like for example Godric's Arena. It's the aftermath of a massive battle. If you check the map, you can see how much was destroyed. This was most likely a result of the battle between Godric and Malenia, as described by Kenneth.
Then he insulted Malenia, lost to her in battle, only to lick her boots, rather than die like a man.
Yeah, so it turns out Godric is just really pathetic, but we already knew that. Another cool location in Stormveil Castle is the hidden area with part of Godwyn's body. You descend deep into the lands between and fight a bizarre creature that you probably haven't seen before this point in your playthrough. You also fight a creature that you have definitely seen before, many times. Too many times. Then there is like this weird squid face at the end in a cave. It really sets up the kind of weird mysteries that you expect to discover over the course of the rest of the game. And dare I say it, Bloodborne vibes. I would have to say that Stormveil Castle is S tier. It's just so open and sprawling with many fun secrets. Limgrave is the first real open world location you get to in the game. It flawlessly sets up the trademarked From Software ass beating.
Hello?
Having such a difficult enemy and such a difficult dungeon right at the start of the first open world area tells every player that it is okay to stray from the guidance of grace. That is where Limgrave truly shines. If you just rush to the castle, you won't spend very long here. But if you do some exploring, there are some really fun things to find. Did you know that Dee can actually be found in Limgrave? You will miss him if you go to the Round Table Hold before coming to this location. He will warn you about the mighty foe ahead of you, the Tibia Mariner. It has engaging mechanics that require you to slowly move out of the way, and hitting it over and over again without really dodging or anything. This is a fight worthy of a true Elden Lord. It drops some death fruit which you can talk to Dee about. He will then point you towards Garank and tell you how to reach him through a teleporter. This is something Limgrave excels at. It has many paths to faraway zones. You can take Dee's teleporter, but there is also another infamous teleporter in some ruins near the start of the game. Upon opening the fart gas chest, you will be teleported right to the middle of Caelid. Limgrave also has a path that just lets you completely skip Stormveil Castle, and it's not even really hidden. You just jump off this bridge and go around the side of the castle. Limgrave also has an elevator that takes you all the way down to Siofra River in what is such an amazing moment. All of these teleporters and paths allow new players to truly get lost in the lands between. The best part of Limgrave is that there are many ways for you to leave Limgrave, kind of like Florida. Also, Mistwood is in Limgrave. Mistwood has giant bears. However, the most important takeaway when it comes to Limgrave is its name. Grave, as in limbs, like grafting limbs, like Godric, and grave, as in dying. For those reasons, I would rate Limgrave as solidly A tier. I am not going to rank the Weeping Peninsula, because I already ranked it in a previous video. What tier would I rate it? I'm glad you asked. It is solidly A tier, but outranked by the Tower of Return. So let's just put that one right there. Now that all the locations are ranked, let's summarize all the rankings. First up, in S tier we have... Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I cannot remember what any of these images mean. You should subscribe to my channel. It would look great on your resume. Also, I didn't rank Ainsel River because I just cannot be bothered. I probably would have rated it A for ants because the zone has ants in it, and that would have been a really funny joke. But I also could have chosen to subvert that joke and rate it like B for ants or something, because it's not A, and the word ant starts with the letter A, and that would have been absolutely hilarious. Man, sometimes I make myself laugh.